This is the alternate timeline. I'm your boy Dennis Smith. I'm your host here. And if I must say,
I woke up feeling villainous.
let's get into it. Let's get into it. Got some things I want to get off my chest. So this video today will be about the villains of the MCU and a little bit of just other Marvel villains. More specifically, two things. I want to talk about the new era of villains that I believe the MCU is in, and I want to talk about also how I rate villains, what I think makes a good villain. So, and then I will relate both of those two things back to Gorr the God Butcher. So let's get into it. So first, I think the MCU is in a new era when it comes to villains. I think Kevin Feige and company have been listening to fans and the outcry of, stop killing off these villains. Like, stop making these villains one and dones just in one movie and then never seeing them again. Examples being like Killmonger and the Red Skull. Like, we need more of these villains to stay for a while, because that's what they do in the comics. You can't just kill them off in one run. So I think we're in an era where that's not the case anymore. And here are a couple of villains that I think, coming up especially, that will be around for a good amount of time. Actually, I think multiple villains will be around at the same time, sticking around with us, which in itself will set up a lot for when they actually decide to do the story of Secret Wars. So you think of someone like Kang the Conqueror, which we saw at the end of the Loki series. He should be a villain that sticks around for a long time because he practically is the owner of time, and it's very hard to beat someone like that. He can essentially jump forward in time and backwards in time, and that makes an infinite amount of him. So he's very hard to beat, and since he's also the guy at the end of time, he's the one that allows everything within the timeline to happen the way it does. So if you kill the person that's at the end of time, somebody else has to control time, and therefore things change in the past. So for example, take somebody that has like a family, like say Reed Richards, say Mr. Fantastic. If you were to kill off Kang the Conqueror, things would start to change. So like maybe he wouldn't have Mrs. Fantastic. He probably wouldn't have his kids or something like that, or he'd have like a different set of kids or a different wife or something like that. So things would just change because it'd be a different person at the end of time controlling the events that happen, things that play out the way it does. So I think I remember a comic run from the Young Avengers where Kang the Conqueror was after Iron Lad, because that was like a past version of himself. They actually come close to beating Kang and killing Kang, but then as they were doing so, things started to change around him. So like, people would like vanish, or people would look different, or like I think New York started to look apocalyptic. So he's hard to kill off because of things like that. So with Kang, you basically have to just fight him off. You basically have to fight him off because you can't kill him, because he can just go back in time or go forward in time or whatever he really wants to do with time. He's very hard to beat, and there's multiple Kangs, just like you saw at the end of Loki. What they were insinuating, like if you kill off him, another Kang will finally be like at the end of time, but instead of him, it'd be like a meaner version of Kang. So, and that's what we're expecting to see moving forward. I love the way that they set him up in the Loki series, and I can't wait to see more of Kang or Kangs or Council of Kangs. You never know. So Kang should be arriving, and he should be more ruthless than the guy we saw at the end of Loki, and he should be here for a long time. He pops in and out of the Avengers stories a lot, so he should be here to stay.
See you soon.
Another villain that is heavily rumored to be on his way is Victor Von Doom, aka Doctor Doom. He is a fan favorite villain who believes heavily in his own beliefs. You know, he thinks he's doing right by his people. He's the leader of the kingdom Latveria. He has a long history with the Avengers and other comic characters. He's also one of the most brilliant minds in the MCU. So he's one of those that should be around for a long time, as he likes to play mind games with our heroes. Doctor Doom has a huge ego, and he hopes to bring order and betterment to humanity, basically, by conquering the world. So his arch enemy is Reed Richards, who we know is also on his way. So Doctor Doom is someone we should be expecting, and you cannot just kill him off so easily. So he will be around for a long time. And the rumor out there on these streets, I did not tell you this. But the rumor is that they've been working on his outfit for about 3 years, and that he's supposed to be showing up in Wakanda Forever. Maybe a post-credit scene. But you didn't hear that from me. Anyway, another villain that I believe will be sticking around for a long time. He's a street level villain that has been introduced. His name is Kingpin. We saw him in the Hawkeye show, and no, he is not dead. I believe that they are adapting a comic run where that happens. He gets shot, but he recovers. But I expect him to be in the MCU for a long time. It's been theorized that he was kind of snapped away during the blip and lost a lot of his empire that he built, which is why, you know, he was very involved in person for the Hawkeye show, whereas usually he would send out like his goons to go handle that kind of business. But, you know, I expect him to grow his empire back and be a big deal in the MCU. I know in the comics there was a time where he was the mayor of NYC, and Vincent D'Onofrio is a great Kingpin. If you want to know more about him, refer to the Daredevil series that is now on Disney Plus. So those are 3 big time villains that, you know, I believe are going to be sticking around for a while. So now the question becomes, what about Gorr the God Butcher? What will they do with him? You know, it's hard to say because his motivations are different. He's more vengeance based rather than trying to like control things like the other 3. Gorr the God Butcher's primary goal is to kill gods, you know, whereas Kingpin, Doctor Doom, and Kang, their primary goals are to control things. So Kingpin wants to control NYC, Doctor Doom wants to control humanity, and King the Conqueror wants to control time. So very different motives. So because of that, I made it up in my head that there's no way that they could have someone like Gorr the God Butcher still roaming around outside of this movie after this movie. I thought it would make no sense to have Gorr out there with that mindset, still hunting gods. You know, until a buddy of mine actually told me about how he does kind of let things go in the comics, and that they could actually bring him back in a different special type of way, which I'm not going to really get into just in case they do choose to go that route. So we'll just have to see. But Gorr the God Butcher, according to Taika Waititi, tested the highest of any MCU villain thus far, which is very interesting because they have just under 2 hours to develop him and make him terrifying. Speaking of terrifying, like I wanted to also get into how I rate villains, what makes a good villain to me. So what makes a good villain for me are the ones that can make me feel uncomfortable when they're on screen, especially when they're on screen with our heroes. That makes a good villain to me. So some examples are, you know, right off the bat, obviously the first one being Thanos. You know, our real introduction to Thanos was him choking out Loki and literally breaking his neck. You could hear it. So right off the bat, like his presence and dominance was established, and when he was around others, it was like he was so powerful, it was almost uncomfortable, which is a good thing, which is how you should want your villains to be, in my opinion. when he was on his home planet fighting Tony Stark and company in Infinity War, when it was just him and Tony at the end of it, and he got the upper hand on Tony and then stabbed Tony Stark, it was so quiet in my theater, like you could hear a pin drop. We were all a little bit on edge, wondering like, is this really gonna be the end of Tony Stark right here, right now? Plus, we're all thinking about contracts being finished and stuff like that. So we're like, wow, they're really killing him off right here, right now. But we were on the edge of our seats, like, wow, this is a good villain. That's a great villain right there. So the reason why I said Marvel as well, and not just MCU, is because I'm including Daredevil's Kingpin. Daredevil's Kingpin is a great villain.
A woman can be bought isn't worth having.
And that is established pretty early on as well. You almost felt more scared for the people that he was doing business with and the people that worked under him. So one of the scenes is he was on a date, or one of the episodes, he was on a date with Vanessa, his girl, and it got interrupted by somebody he was doing business with. He takes him to a vacant parking lot and they get into a scuffle. Kingpin ultimately wins, and then he starts to bash this guy's head in with the car door and the car, like in between the car door and the car. Bashes his head in like and it gets bloody. It's a gruesome scene. It gets bloody, and from then on I was like, wow, that's a great villain right there, because I'm like literally scared of him, and you're just wondering, you're on the edge of your seat wondering like, what is he about to do next? Like, what kind of crazy stuff is he about to pull off next? Because he's for real like that, and I hope that they can continue that Kingpin in the MCU. Maybe not as brutal, but you get the picture. But that's a great villain in my opinion. The other Marvel villain that I thought was also great was Killgrave. He is part of the Jessica Jones show. He's also a great villain with abilities to control people.
If you like that thing, I'll make you put it out in your eye.
I'd like to see you try.
Arseholes try, I just do. Put that out.
Jessica Jones is a very calm, kind of even-keeled superhero who's a bit broken, but because she is a little bit broken, she's very good at containing or even ignoring her emotions. Killgrave and her have some really intense moments, causing her to step outside of her comfort zone and go a little bit crazy at times. So that villain got her to do that, which was pretty impressive. There's also a crazy scene in there where he goes into a police precinct while they're looking for him. He's a wanted guy, and he walks in there and holds the whole place hostage, and they can't do anything because his abilities, he talks, and that's how he controls you. He just talks to you, right? So Killgrave was a great villain as well. Some other villains like Scarlet Witch in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, thought also a really solid villain. She was taking out whoever was in her path. She was starting to get corrupt and look all like distorted and stuff, so that added to the creepiness of her villain. This gave her scary vibes. Plus what she did to the Illuminati was brutal and it just made you kind of like, whoa, it made you kind of like step back, like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. Another villain, Killmonger, great villain, great motives. You cannot tell me when he was around Wakandans that it didn't make you feel a little uncomfortable, a little nervous for those Wakandans. Homie was unhinged, but he felt like he was right with all his actions. He felt like he was doing the right thing. We had the theater filled with a lot of African Americans, and during the span of that movie, the Wakandans in that movie were our brothers and sisters. That's just how it was. They were family to us during that movie. Those were our brothers and sisters. And then freaking Killmonger felt like that crazy uncle that would come around to the family function that was a little like, had a little bit of screws loose, and as soon as he came around, like the whole family gets on edge. That's what Killmonger was like. That's what Killmonger was like. He was that crazy uncle that was like, oh my god, he's here. Everybody tenses up. But he's he's that crazy uncle that pops up at the family reunions, and you think like, what's about to go wrong right now? But yeah, that's how he made you feel, and you really had no choice but to worry about the Wakandans when he was on screen with them. To me, that's a great villain. That is a great villain. There's a couple other solid villains like Green Goblin, like Hela, like Zemo as well. But like, you get the gist of what I mean by this. So what I'm hoping for is that Gorr the God Butcher can make me feel something similar to where, you know, he's so terrifying because he's so strong and like off the rails crazy about his mission that, you know, I feel a little uneasy when he interacts with our heroes. But I think there will be an opportunity for that to happen just based off of the trailers. My biggest fear with Gorr the God Butcher is I hope that they can really sell us, you know, on his story and how he came to be the way that he is, because the movie has to squeeze quite a bit in just under 2 hours of runtime. I guess we'll just have to see for ourselves the reason why Gorr was tested so highly as a villain, which I'm very interested to see why, because he does have a lot of potential. My only worry is that everything, you know, that surrounds Thor seems to be really fun and vibrant and lighthearted, when I need Gorr the God Butcher to be not so fun in this movie. I need it to be serious when he's around and like terrifying when he's around, because then if the tone doesn't change when he's around, like, it won't make me feel the way I need to feel when it comes to Gorr the God Butcher. I need to feel his presence, basically, you know. And I'm hoping that's something that they've been kind of hiding from us in the trailers. And sadly, it might have to be something where like he has to kill off one of our main characters. He has to either kill off Valkyrie or one of the Thors for me to feel him the way that I need to. So we'll see. Also, while I was making this video, I thought of something with Killmonger that I'm going to share in the next video. It kind of got me hyped, but also super sad because opportunities will be missed. You'll see in the next video what I'm talking about. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. You know, so who are some of your favorite villains? You know, are there any villains that you're looking forward to in the MCU? You know, and how do you think Gorr the God Butcher will be in this upcoming movie? And do we think that he survives this movie? Will we be able to cast him aside for a second and then bring him back? Who knows? We're just gonna have to see on July 7th, July 8th, when Thor Love and Thunder comes out. Excited to see the movie, but that's all I got for you in this video. I just wanted to talk about some of these villains out here. This is the alternate timeline. This is pure escapism. And you know, leave a like down below if you enjoyed this video, or subscribe to the channel if you want to hang out with me some more. And I hope you all are having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.